So today we'll build a full stack subscription blog application using nextjs14, Prisma, MongoDB, and Stripe. What we have is a premium blog app. What we have is a blog application that we're naming the Premium Digest. And we'll start by having a basic homepage that displays a free and premium blog that is built by one of our users. So in order to gain access to the site or full functionality to the site, you'll need to log in. But as an unauthenticated user, you'll still get access to take a look at free posts or posts that are marked as non-premium or free. Once the user logs in via Google OAuth, and we'll be using authjs version 5 in order to set up authentication. Once the user logs in, they'll then have the ability to click on dashboard or create. Dashboard will show the current blogs created by the user in a table, and we'll have the ability to click on details and update the blog if we wish to make any changes to it. If we want to change it from premium, the title, description, or the image. So right here, I named the title Blog Insights with an extra S. I'll remove the S. And if I click on update, you see the post is successfully updated, and that's some caching there. And once we refresh the screen, you'll see that the title no longer displays the additional S. The other cool thing about our dashboard that we have the ability to do is manage our blog status. So currently, as you can see, our status is we are on a free plan. And this means that we're not a premium subscriber, so we don't have the ability to take a look at any of the premium blogs. What I mean by that is if we go back to the home screen and we click on a blog that is labeled premium, what'll happen is we'll be redirected to a screen that says that we need to upgrade our subscription because we are not a subscribe or a subscription member. So in order to become a subscription member, we'll need to click on dashboard. And if we click on free plan or upgrade, we'll then be redirected to Stripe. And within Stripe, we created a product that is a monthly subscription that we are selling that gain access to our premium blog. The monthly subscription is $1.99 per month. So let's just say we went ahead and we decided to sign up to become a premium member. And then once we enter in the card information and click on subscribe, once the payment is successful, we'll then be redirected to a success page, and we can put this within the framework of the site. But the key thing I want you to see is that once you then click on dashboard, you'll notice that we're now subscribed. And if we click on home and we click on premium, you see we now have access to the premium blog because we're now a subscriber to the monthly subscription. So if this is something you think you may be interested in building, stay tuned. I'm going to walk you through how I built this application in this video now, step by step. And go ahead and log out. Okay, so to start us out, what I have is a empty directory on my desktop that we're going to install Next.js, and the code editor that I'm using in this video is Visual Studio Code. Feel free to use any editor that you like, but to kick us off, to get started, we'll type in the command in the terminal npx create next app at latest, and we'll go space dot so that we install it inside of the current directory. And in this project, we're not going to use TypeScript. We'll say yes to ESLint, Tailwind, no SRC, yes to the app router, and no to the import alias. And we'll give it a few minutes to finish its installation. right, we'll give it a few more minutes to finish installing. Okay, and now that we have this installed, before we spin up our application, let's go ahead and add in our authentication. And the authentication that we'll be using in this project is, as I mentioned, NextOff version 5. So I'll go to authjs, we'll go to Google, and then we'll click on, or we'll type in authjs, excuse me, and we'll go ahead and start by installing the NextOff, and the version that we're using is version 5 and it's still in beta, but that's okay. We'll still be able to use it just fine. So let's start by copying this dependency and installing it first. Excuse me. Then next we'll need to add a auth secret inside of our .env file. So within the root directory, let's add a file named .env. And before let's go ahead and paste in the auth secret, and be sure to update this. I'm not going to worry about it in this project, but if you were doing a production level project, you may want to update that secret to something a little more secure. And within the root directory, I'm also going to add the .env file to the .getignore, so it is not included once we upload this to Git. So let's go ahead and close out the getignore and .env file, and then back in the documentation. Next, we'll need to install a file named authjs, and this is going to be within the root of our application. So we'll go head back to the text editor, type in auth.js as a file, creating it, and within that, let's paste in the code that we just copied from the documentation. And then we'll need to create our route handler, and this is going to be within the API directory. And I'm just going to copy this code directly from the docs, or this I'm going to copy this path, excuse me, directly from the docs, and we'll just install it inside of the app directory. So we'll go back to the code editor. Within the app folder, we'll add a new folder and just paste in the code that we just copied. And what it should do, it should automatically create a directory, or excuse me, a series of folders named API/auth/bracket ... close bracket. And then within that, we'll add a file named route.js. And within this route.js, you're going to notice that we want to import the handlers from the auth that we just created. And then we're going to export the get and post handlers. So I'm going to just copy the export. And before I paste in the export, I'm going to import the handlers, and I'm just going to import it. I'm going to type it out just to make sure that it is being captured from the correct location. And it is. And then once I have it, I'll go ahead and paste in the get and post handlers, and we can close this file out. And I'm gonna hold off on the middleware in this particular project, simply because it doesn't play well with Prisma in its beta version of authjs. So for right now, I'm gonna hold off on it. We'll have a different way to secure our dashboard to make sure that only authenticated users have access to it. So with the installation complete, next up we want to add in our adapter, and the adapter that we're going to be using in this project is Prisma. So before we install the adapter, we'll need to visit the Prisma docs and install Prisma. So what we'll do is we'll head back to the terminal, and within it we'll type in npm -d and then Prisma to install Prisma as a dependency. Give it a few minutes. And type clear, get a little more room here. And then after we install Prisma, we're going to go npm @prisma/client. And spell that correctly, then press enter. And then next we'll need to initialize Prisma. So we'll go npx prisma init and then press enter. And this should create a Prisma directory within the app or the root of our project. And it should give us a schema.prisma file. So with Prisma set up, we'll now head back to the documentation and finish out the installation. So we'll need to install the auth/prisma adapter. So we'll grab it. And next we'll need to install Prisma. Give us a little more room. Now we'll need to configure our database and environment variables, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to finish out the rest of the installation. Next we'll need to include the Prisma adapter, and this is going to be within the auth.js file. So we'll go back to auth.js, we'll import the Prisma adapter, and then we'll need to initiate Prisma in the Prisma client. And I like to keep this separate from the auth.js file because we will be using the Prisma function throughout the application. So within the root directory, let's add a folder named lib, and within it, let's add a file named prisma.js. And I actually already have the Prisma function that I want to use already typed out, so we don't have to grab it from the docs. So I'm just going to copy it from a previous repo and paste it within this file. Feel free to pause the video here and copy it, but I'm also going to include the source code in the description of our project. So after we have this, the next thing we want is to bring in the Prisma adapter. So I'll add it here. And within it, we want to pass in Prisma. So we'll just remove the M&A and be sure to import it from lib, which is the directory that we just installed, or we just added our Prisma function. And as we continue to scroll down, next up, and as I mentioned, we're not going to worry about the middleware, which is where we'll need it to do some additional configuration for the edge compatibility by following this workaround. But we're not going to worry about that for this project. But next up, we do need to capture our schema. And as I mentioned, we're going to be using MongoDB in this project. So I'm just going to copy this entire code snippet that's listed here. And we'll go to our schema.prisma file, and we can just highlight everything within this file and delete it. And we're going to paste in what we just copied from the documentation. Let's remove, you'll notice that we're getting an error. We're going to remove the authenticator model. And if we scroll up, we're going to remove the array from the user. And then let's just let's just save this file for right now. And what we want to do is add our database URL to the .env file. Currently, you notice that it is the PostgreSQL database by default, but we installed, or we told our Prisma schema file that we're going to have a MongoDB as a provider. So let's go ahead and set up our MongoDB cluster now. So I went ahead and logged into my MongoDB account. It's free to set up. If you go to mongodb.com, you can just sign in with Google and set up a free account. But once you're signed in, you want to navigate to the new project window, and let's create a project. I'm going to name this project my app. Feel free to name it whatever you like. And then once you've named it, go ahead and click on next. And then it should take you to the permissions window. And I'm just going to keep the default user, which should be the signed in user, and click on create project. And we'll give it a few moments to finish creating. And then we should be redirected to the cluster window. So we'll click on create. And for this project, I'm just going to use the free cluster. Feel free to select the tier that best suits your needs. Be sure that the region is the region that's closest to you. By default, it should automatically default to it, but wouldn't hurt to check to be sure. And then once you've done that, just click on create deployment. Excuse me. And then from there, you're going to be redirected to the connect the cluster. First, you'll need to set the authentication or create a database user, I should say. And once you've done that, click on create the user. It's going to automatically generate a password. I'm just going to keep the password as already generated. And we'll click on connect to cluster. And then as we want to connect to our application, the connection type we want is MongoDB for VS Code. And you'll notice that if you have show password already toggled, it's going to provide the database URL with password already built in. Be sure that this is something that's secure, that not anyone can easily access. So let's just copy it for right now, and we'll head back to our .env file, and we're going to highlight the code that's within the parentheses and remove it. And then let's just paste in the database URL that we just captured. And at the end of this connection string, let's type in the word test, because that's the name of our database. If you named your table anything, then you'll want to make sure that you name it here. Otherwise, if you didn't name it anything, it should automatically default to test. So just go ahead and type that in. And we'll want to save this file, and we can close out the .env for right now. And let's go back to the documentation in auth.js. And you'll notice that it is ready for us to migrate our models to the database. But before we migrate our models, let's go ahead and add in a couple additional items. That way we won't have to worry about coming back to this file to make any additional changes in the future. So we already have our user created, and our user won't have much additional items that need to be included with it based on what's already here listed by the Prisma adapter. But what we do want to add to our user is the ability to capture their customer ID from Stripe. This will be the last thing that we integrate, but we'll go ahead and add it to the user now. So let's go ahead and inside of the user model, let's go ahead and type in Stripe, STRIPE, underscore customer, underscore ID. And this is going to be a string, and we'll give it a question mark because it's not required in order to create a user. But we will need this because when we log in with our user and we click on the dashboard, we're going to automatically create a Stripe customer at that point, which will give the user the ability to navigate the Stripe and manage their subscription either by adding a subscription or canceling. And the other model that we'll want to create before we add anything else to the user is a post model. So at the end of the schema file, let's type in the keyword model, and we're going to name this model post. We'll start by adding a ID for a unique identifier to each post. So I'm just going to copy the ID from the user and paste it within the post model. And then we'll give the property of title to the model, and it will be a string. We'll give description. It will be a string as well. We'll go image source or SRC. This will be a string, and we'll be using Cloudinary to store our images, and we'll create our own database string. And then we'll also want to capture the creator ID. This will be a string. This will be used to distinguish what user created the post so that we can associate the post back to a user. Next, we'll want to have premium as a property, PREMIUM, and we want to make this a Boolean. This will be whether it is a premium or not. If it's premium, then of course a subscription will be required. If it's not premium, then it'll be labeled as a free post and any user can view it. And then after premium, we want to create a user. And this is going to be associated with the user model. So we'll go user, and then we'll go at relation. And then inside of it, we'll go fields. And the field will be creator ID because we want to associate it by the ID. And for us, instead of referencing the user ID, what I want to reference is the user email. This is going to make it a little easier to identify this user, and we can also leverage the session and capture the email from the session to kind of help us associate the logged in user. So now that we're getting this error, it says that we have to have a relation field in the user model. So we'll go back up to the user model and we'll create a field named post. And we're going to associate post and an empty array back with that user, meaning that a user can have multiple posts. And then inside of the post model, last but certainly not least, we just want to capture when we created and updated the post. So I'm just going to copy this from the user model and paste it within the post field, or excuse me, paste it within the post model. And now that we have this, we can go ahead and save the file. And before we migrate this to the database, well, actually, let's go ahead and migrate it to the database. So with this, we shouldn't need to make any additional changes to our schema. So let's go ahead and type in the command. Oh, let me delete that. In the terminal, let's type in npx prisma db push. And what this is going to do is push our models to the database, provided we don't have any errors. Let's push it to MongoDB. And then after we've typed in npx prisma db push, we'll type npx prisma generate. And provided we don't have any errors, everything should have been successfully updated to the database. So if we go back to the auth.js, we just followed this workflow, and you'll notice that we've basically completed everything we need to do in order to add the Prisma adapter. The last piece of the puzzle in order to complete out the authentication is to set up a provider. And for this project, what we'll be using the provider we'll be using is Google. So we'll go back to the docs and we'll click on Google. And you'll notice that it is then redirecting us to the Google OAuth documentation. So if you need to set up a Google console, I would suggest you follow those steps, or I'm going to link a video once this stream is over to how to set up a project. But I'm not going to waste too much of your time of going through that process. But basically what you want to do is set up a project within the Google console, and it's free of charge. And then once you've set up that project, you'll then need to create credentials. And then once you've created your credentials, you'll need to set up your OAuth account. And for this project, I already have an OAuth set up, so I'm not going to create another one. You'll start by naming the application, and then you'll need to set your redirect to your local host. And then your authorized redirect is going to be API auth/callback/Google. This redirect is coming directly from the documentation. Now, the big thing that we want to capture from this code is our client secret and client ID. You'll notice that within the auth.js, we need to include this information in the environment variables. So I'm going to copy these variables as they're typed out. You can name them whatever you want. Just make sure that you update your code accordingly. But I'm just going to keep it simple and keep it named as is. So I'm going to copy this, and we'll go back to the .env file. And underneath the database URL, I'm going to paste the auth_Google ID and also the secret. And I'm going to capture the Google secret from within the Google console. So I just copied the secret and I'm going to paste it there. And then the Google ID is listed here. I'll just go back a window and copy the Google client ID from this window. And we'll paste it in. And just be sure to save this. And we should be able to close out the API credentials at that point. And we can close out the Prisma documentation as well. And as we continue to scroll through the docs, you'll see next we need to update our auth.js file. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this Google import, and we'll go close out the .env, close out Prisma. It's going to ask you if you want to save it. Be sure to save it. And let's include the Google import. And we'll also need to pass it in as a provider. And we'll click save. And I'm not going to worry about the refresh token, and we're not going to do any additional customization. And for this project, I don't think, no, I'm not going to worry about creating the email verified in this one. But in an upcoming project, we will utilize it once we have a logged in user. We'll send a email link and have them follow that verification process just to include more of the auth.js authentication options. But for this project, we'll hold off. So that really should complete everything that we need for setting up our authentication. What we'll do in order to test it out before we spin up our local host, let's just go into the app directory, and inside of the page.js, this is the main root page of our app, the home page, if you will. Let's remove all of the boiler code from Next, and we'll replace it with our own brand new function, and we'll title it homepage, and let's just save the file. And then within the global.css, let's remove all of the boiler code within it, except for the tailwind configuration. And then we'll add a body, and we'll put overflow X, and I just like to include hidden. And we'll close out the global.css. Now we should be ready to spin up our application to make sure that everything is working. So within the terminal, I'm going to type in the command npm run dev and press enter. And while it is spinning up, I'm just going to adjust my window a little bit so we can see the local host once it is up. That looks good. Looks like we have a local host, and we see homepage. Now we should be, although we have not included any login or logout buttons just yet, we should be able to see, we should be able to log in with Google without an issue. So with the local host, I'm going to add in /API/auth/sign-in. And this should redirect us to Google, to sign in with Google. Yep. So if we click on this and we'll just select an account to sign in with, you'll notice that you should see the my auth nextjs, which is the same name of the Google web app that I created, just saying that we have a user that wants to log in. Then once we click on continue, you'll see that we are currently redirected back to the home page. So that should be an indication that the sign-in worked successfully. Otherwise, we would have got an error. But let's just go ahead and begin to style the application a little bit, and then we can include the login and logout buttons and help us better identify if we have a logged in user. So first up, what I want to do is I want to begin by installing or setting up our user interface. And to kind of help with the design and the layout, we're going to be using NextUI. So we'll go to the docs and type in NextUI, and we'll start by, give me a second. We'll start by installing the NextUI. And I'm also going to include next-themes and press enter. And then you'll notice that we'll need to add some additional configuration inside of our Tailwind config file, but I'll give it a minute to finish installing first. Okay, and then with that, it's done. So we'll go ahead and add in the config import, and then we'll need to include the node module. So we'll install it here, and I'll remove this background image and I'll replace it with colors, and we're just going to add a primary color. And I think for this project, let me see, I want a soft blue. I noticed that it is hashing the fave icon that we haven't set up just yet, but that's okay. But I do want to set up a blue color as our primary color that we can create shades off of for the remainder of the project. So 38B6FF will be the primary blue color. And we'll need to include the class of dark mode. We may add it. I know I didn't include it on the original design, but we may. And then we'll also include the Next UI plugin. Then we'll need to wrap our application with the provider. So inside of the root directory, inside of lib, let's create a file named nextthemeprovider.js. And we'll need to make a slight adjustment based off what's in the documentation because we're going to keep everything client side. So I went ahead and I'm just going to use a prior project to capture this code. This is strictly optional anyway, but if you do want to follow this verbatim, just pause the video and copy this code. And then once you have it, you can close out that file. Excuse me. And then let's go ahead and import it into the application. So inside of the app directory, inside of layout.js, let's just update this a little bit and we'll remove the children and let's bring in the next theme provider and wrap our app with it. And then inside of the next theme provider, we'll paste in the children that we just copied. Let's close out that file, close out the tailwind config, close out the page.js. And I tell you what, let's update where it says create next app. Let's change that to the name of our app, which is going to be the Premium Digest. And I'll click save. And I also have a fave icon that I want to use for this project. And what I'll do is I'm going to drag it from the directory and I'm going to place it inside of the app. And you'll notice because I have it named the exact same as the current fave icon that's there, it's going to ask if you want to replace it. I'm going to click yes. I want to update it with this P. And I just got this as a free fave icon from one of the free fave icon websites that'll generate one for you. If you're interested, I'll include the link to it in the description once the stream is over as well. Otherwise, you can leave it, delete it, feel free to update it however you want. And then once we have this, let's go ahead and let's also create a directory inside of the root directory named components. And inside of it, I'm going to add a file named logo.js. And inside of the logo.js file, I think I just want to have a simple logo that we can include for our project. So I also have a logo of just this, and I use this to help generate the fave icon. So the logo that I have, I'm just going to place it inside of the public directory so I can access it within my project. And inside of the logo, once I've dragged it into the public folder, go back to logo.js and we'll do a snippet and update the component name to be logo. And let's replace the div with a link, and the link is going to come from next/link. We'll give it an href to go back to the home page. Just in case we click on the logo and we want to go back to home, we can do so. And then inside of it, I'm going to bring in image. And image is going to come from next image. So we'll go import imag from next/image. And our image is going to need a src, which is going to be /logo.png. We'll give it an alt of Premium Digest. Let's give it a width, and the width will set to width or 60, and we'll go height We'll set it to height or 60. And then finally, we'll give it a class name of object contain. Close it out. And then for our href, let's give it a little bit of styling as well. We'll give it class name. We'll call it transition transform. Transform duration 300, and we'll say hover scale it up to 110, and we'll go cursor pointer, and this is just to give a little hover effect for the logo. Let's save it, and we can close this out. So we have our logo, we have fave icon, we've updated the title. Let's kind of go ahead and begin to update the layout and bring in the nav bar, and also be able to have the ability to log in and log out. So first thing we want to do is inside of the app directory, let's create a new folder named parentheses website. And this is just for organization purposes so that we can have all of our website within a directory inside of app versus just as individual pages. So I'm going to drag the home page inside of the website directory so that now the only thing that we have in app is the fave icon, the global.css, and the layout.js. And then inside of website, I want to create a separate layout that will bring in our nav bar so that the nav bar isn't within the main layout. So inside of website, we'll add a file named layout.js, and we'll give it the RFCE React snippet. And you'll notice that we just broke our app. And then inside of it, we'll pass in children. And then we'll remove layout and we'll replace it with children. And we'll hit save, and it should go back to, it'll go right back to what it was previously. So now what we'll want to do is set up or bring in the nav bar so that we can then add in our login, logout functionality and confirm that we have that ability through the auth provider. So let's go ahead and remove the children for right now. And we'll begin by adding in or bringing in the header that we just created. No, we haven't created it just yet. So before we bring in or create header, let's go ahead and add main, and we'll paste in the children that we just copied. And inside of main, we'll give it a height of full for styling purposes. And then now what we want to do is create the header so that we can have the ability to see or log in, log out, add a logo, etc. So inside of components, I'm going to add a folder named header, and inside of it we'll add a file named header.js, and we'll give it the React snippet. We'll change the name to header with a capital H, and back in the layout.js. Now let's bring in the header, and be sure to import it from components/header/header. Let's close out that file. And as you can see, we now have the header on our home screen, and it is listed there, so perfect. So now what I want is to add a little more styling and give it some padding so that it is responsive regardless of the size of the window, and we have the padding throughout. Now we could do this on each individual file, but I think it'll be easier if we create a reusable component that gives us that ability, so that all we have to do is just bring it in and we'll have the padding by default. So inside of components, let's add another file named box.js. And then within it, we're going to update the component name to make it box with a capital B. Inside of it, we want to pass in children because we'll be passing in children as props. And we can remove the word box and add children or replace it with children. But the key for this, in order to create that reusability, is children. But we also want to set the styling by giving the div a class name. And we'll go max width of screen. And I want to make it large. And then we'll also want everything to be centered, so we'll go MX or margin of auto. And then on extra large devices, we want the padding on the X to be set to 20. And XL is dash 20. Sorry about that. And then on medium devices, we want the padding on the X to be set to 10. On small devices, we want the padding on the X to be set to 2. And then by default, we want to give a padding on the X of 4. So if we save this, we can close it out. Now let's go back to our header.js and let's remove the div that's currently listed there, and let's replace it with a header tag. Now I want to give a little bit of padding up top, so I'm going to set the padding on the Y to 4, and then within it I'm going to add box with that we just created so that we'll get the padding from it. And then within box, let's just add header just to see if we notice a difference. And you'll notice that we now have padding on the Y and on the X. And if we expand the window size, the header is now moved more so into the middle of the page versus on the outside of the page as it was previously, and as home page is currently listed. So great, our header component, or box component, excuse me, is working. So let's go ahead and spend a little bit of time inside of our header and update it so that we can then see whether we have a logged in or a logged out user. So inside of header, the first thing I want to do is mark this as a asynchronous file. We're going to keep this server side rendered as much as possible. And I'll let you know when we'll be changing it over to client side. But you know, with Next, everything is a server component, so we want to stay true to it as much as possible. And then inside of the header, I want to create a variable named session. And this session is, I want to gain access to the auth file or the auth handlers that we created in our auth.js file earlier. And then we'll create a variable named user, and we'll set it equal to session with a question mark, meaning that if we have a session, we want to capture that user. And what we'll be doing or using this for is to conditionally render the sign in or sign out button in the event that we have a logged in user. If we have a logged in user, then we want to display log out. That way that user can log out. And if we don't have one, we want to display log in. That way we can get a logged in user. So we actually can capture the login, log out from the documentation within auth.js. But for simplicity purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and type it in for you. So because we're staying server side, you know, we can't use any on-click or any front-end JavaScript. We'll have to use form and form actions. So the first action that I want to create is the log out button, because we should already have a logged in user. So I'm going to go function log out button, and we'll go ahead and inside of it we'll return a form, and we'll give our form a action, and let's change that to the brackets, and we'll go async, because this is a asynchronous action, ASYNC, yep. And inside of it we'll make sure that we note that this is going to be a use server file, and then we'll go await, and we'll go sign out, because this is going to be what we want to utilize from the auth.js that we set up earlier. And then inside of it, what we want to pass in is a button, and this button should be imported from Next UI. And inside of the button, I want to set it to a type of submit, and the variant, and which is coming from Next UI, I want to just set it to light. And we could just use login, log out words, but I want to have a React icon here. So in the terminal, I'm just going to go ahead and type in npm I React icons to install React icons package. Okay. And then once it's installed at the top, let's just go ahead and import it. So we'll go import, and we can leave the brackets empty, and then we'll say React-icons. And I want to use the FI. Feel free to use whichever ones you want. And for logout, I want to go fi log out, and we'll give it a class name with a height of 4, a width of 4, and let's just close it out. And then we'll click save. And let's just go ahead and add in the sign in while we're at it. So you could copy the logout function, replace logout with sign in button. And instead of it reading sign out right here, we'll just go sign in. Be sure you're importing it from auth.js. And instead of having a fi logout icon, let's go user. We'll click save. And then now what we want is to bring it in to our header so that we can see it. But first, well, let's go ahead and remove the word header and let's replace it with nav. And this is just going to serve as, instead of having a div, we're going to have a nav in its place. So we'll go nav and we'll give it a class name of flex. We'll say justify between, and we'll go item centered. And on the far left of our nav, I want to have the logo that we created. So we'll go ahead and begin to type it out. And if we click save, it's saying width is not defined. Yes. So let's go back to the logo. And the reason it's saying width is not defined is because we're passing it in. And what I meant to do is I do want to set this as a reusable prop because we may want to adjust the logo size based upon what window we have it on. So in order to make this a prop, we'll just need to pass in width and height. And because if we don't give it a custom width and height, it's going to automatically default to 60, which is what it's doing right now. But if we want to make this a component or a reusable component, let's just say we wanted to set the width to 100 because we wanted it bigger, and we want to set the height to 100. And if we click save, you'll notice that it is now bigger because we made this a prop. But 60 for the header, it'll be just fine. So I'll just remove that code, click save, and you'll notice that it's going back to the original size of 60. All right, so glad we caught that. And then next, what we want is to have a div. And then this div is going to hold the user login, logout buttons. And if the user is logged in, I also want to display some additional nav links so that a logged in user has more ability than a logged out user. So inside of this div, we'll go user, which is saying if we have a user session, we want to display some information. So what we want to display is a div. And I tell you what, to remove the error that Next doesn't like, we'll add the or. And we'll say if we don't have a user, then let's just go ahead and return some brackets so that we have something. And we can actually just go ahead and add the sign in button because that's all we're going to have if we don't have a user. And if we do have a user, what we want is to display some links. And the links we want to display, let's go ahead and style them. It'll set the direction. We'll say flex. Then we'll say item centered. And what we want is to display the nav links. And we also want to display a log out button. So what we should see first is the ability to log out. And you see we have a log out icon because we should have a user session. So just to test this out before we add any additional links, I'm going to click on log out. And you notice that it is now changing to a user icon, which should represent sign in. So I'm going to click on sign in. It's going to redirect us to the API/auth/sign in. And it also has our callback URL. This is coming from the Google console that we created earlier. Then we'll click sign in. I'm going to select the user I want to sign in with. And then we'll click on continue. And then you notice that we're being redirected back with the log out button, which indicates that we have a user session there. So that's perfect. And next up, what I want to do is I want to include some links so that the user has some additional capability in the event that we're logged in. So within the, I hit Control N, sorry. So we'll go ahead within the header file. Let's add a file named navlinks.js. And this is going to be, because we want some interactivity and the ability, we want the ability to distinguish what route we're on by clicking on the link. We're going to need to make this a client-side component because we want some client-side functionality. So we'll start by marking the file as use client. And then we'll give the React functional snippet, change the name to navlinks, save the file, and let's go ahead and import it inside of the header so that we can at least have something on the screen. And so inside of the header.js, we'll just go navlinks that we just created, click save, and you'll see that we now have the navlinks next to the logout button. Perfect. So we can actually close out header.js and we'll close out logo as well. So we'll just focus on the nav link file, and within it, we'll start by adding in our routes that we can loop over. And I like to create an array of an object so that we can easily add and reduce the amount of code and make changes to routes as this project grows. But for right now, we'll just create the empty array of routes, and it will pass in an object. And the object, the first one will be a href, and we want the href, the first route, to be set to the home route, and we'll give it a label of home. And the next route will be /dashboard. So we'll go href and we'll go /dashboard, and we haven't created these routes just yet, but that's okay. And then it will give it a label of dashboard. And then last but not least, we want the ability to create a new post. So we'll give it a href of /create. And we'll give it a label of create. Right. So now what we want to do is update our navlinks component, the return statement. So I'll just remove the div and replace it by giving, and also give it a class name of flex. We'll give it a gap of 2, and we want the items to be centered. And then what we want is to map over each of the routes in the route array, and we're going to name them routes. And for each one, we want to display a nav item. And we're going, and instead of hard coding this into this same file, I like to create a separate component. So inside of the header, I'm going to add a file named nav-item.js. And I think this one, we're going to need to make this, definitely make this one a client component because we're going to be using use path. So we'll set use client to start out, then we'll bring in or create the functional component. We'll name it nav item. And then inside of the nav links for each of the routes, let's create a route, and we want to have a nav item for each route that we create. So we'll go routes.map, and we'll name it map, or excuse me, we'll name it route, not map. And then for each route, we want to create a nav item. And remember, with the nav item, because we're mapping over, we have to give a key. So the key is going to be route.label. And then we'll need an href. The href is going to be route.href. And we'll need a label. The label will be route.label. And then we'll click save, and we should have 3. Yep, and we have 3 nav items, which is representing a route in each, which is representing 3 because we have 3 routes within our array. So perfect. We can go ahead and close out the nav links file, and we'll continue to, or start to focus strictly on the nav item. So of course, we said that if you remember, we passed in props, or we had props with our nav item. So we need to pass those in so that we can get access to them. So remember, the name of them was label and href. And then we'll need some imports in order to make this function properly. So we'll go ahead and bring in link from next link, and we'll also bring in use path name, and this is going to come from next navigation. And what this is going to do is going to allow us to set the path name, or to capture the path name of the route that we're on. So let's create a variable named path name, and we'll need to use the camel case. So we'll just set it equal to use path, and be sure to call it. And then let's create a variable name is active, and then we'll set it equal to path name and make it equal to the href. And then now inside of the return statement, let's remove the div and gain access to link. And remember, links have to have href, and remember this href is just going to be href because we're going to be passing it in as a prop. And then inside of the link, let's pass in the label. And if we hit save, we should now see home, dashboard, and create, which represent the labels that are the names of our route. Excuse me. All right, now inside of the link, we want to give a little bit of styling so that we can distinguish which route we're on. So from a base perspective, let's pass in inside the class name some temporal literals, and I'm going to set the text to the primary color. And then here's where the magic happens, that if it is active, meaning that we're on an active route, I want the font to be bold. Or if we're not on an active route, I want the text to be gray, and we'll set the color to 600. So let's hit save, and you'll notice that home is now the primary color because we said that if it's active, we want the text to be using our primary color, which is what we set inside of the next config. Excuse me. So now let's make sure that when we click on dashboard and create, it automatically updates. And if you recall, we named these routes /dashboard and /create for the href. So inside of the website directory, let's add a folder named dashboard, and inside of it, let's add a file named page.js, and we'll give it the React snippet and name dashboard page, and name this function dashboard page. And if we click on dashboard, you'll notice that we are redirected to the dashboard page, and the text is now blue. And then inside of website, let's add another folder named create, and we'll give it a page.js, create page. And let's go back to our local host and click on create. And as you can see, we're now being redirected, and as we are navigating, the links are highlighting of the page that we're currently on. So perfect. That is working as designed. So let's start by styling before we worry about our front end interface. Let's go ahead and set up our dashboard. So let's close out the create page, and let's just focus on the dashboard page. And if you recall, the dashboard had I'm not closed out the prior project, but if you recall, the dashboard had a nav bar, and it also had the table that showed all of the posts that were created by the user. And remember, the nav bar was the separate nav bar that allowed the user to manage their subscription. But as we're styling this out, we'll begin to implement some of those items. But first, let's go ahead and set this dashboard page as an asynchronous page because we want this to be server-side rendered. And I'm going to bring in the session, and I want to get access to the auth in this file, and we'll go ahead and set a user and set it equal to session $.user. We'll hit save, and let's say to make sure that this is a secure page or that we only get authenticated users, we'll say if no user. Let's redirect, and the redirect should be coming from next auth. And let's just redirect the user to the home page. And to make sure that we are getting a session, which we should be because we haven't been redirected, I'm going to create a user email variable, and I'm going to set it equal to user.email. And let's just make sure it's working. We'll pass it in as some JavaScript, and you'll notice that the email we see now is the JA-. So perfect, that is working. So we have quite a bit of things that we want to get accomplished on this page, but we'll take it step by step. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of begin with the overall layout. So I'm going to remove this div, and let's just replace it with a section. And we'll give it a class name, and we'll give it some styling, a padding on the while for. Then within it, let's bring in the box so that we can set the appropriate padding. And then inside of it, we'll add a div, and we'll say flex item centered, and then justify between. This is going to serve as the dashboard nav. Yep, and on the dashboard nav, what I want is text to distinguish that we're on that page with a description, and then on the far right, we'll include the manage your subscription links, but that's gonna be added last. But let's go ahead and add in the header text. So inside of components, I want this to be reusable because I intend to use a header text and description throughout the entire page. So I'm going to put this in the main components directory, not in the directory inside of just the dashboard page. So inside of it, let's add a file named heading text.js, and we'll go to RFC snippet. We'll go heading text, save the file. And then inside of it, we want to pass in a title and description. And we'll remove heading text. And let's update this div by giving it a class name and we'll give it flex and set the direction to column. And let's just go back to the dashboard page and pass in heading text just so we can see something on the screen. We'll give it a title of dashboard page and description. Doesn't have to have anything complicated. We'll set the description to see all post. Make that capital. And manage subscription. Just letting the user know what they can get done from this page. Oh, I shouldn't have saved it. Yeah, there we go. So we're not seeing anything because we're passing in the children, but we haven't distinguished what we want done with it yet. So we'll set a H1, title, save, and you should see the title, yep. And then we'll go description, hit save, and then now you see the description. So what we want now is just to add some styling. So we'll start by styling the H1 first. We'll go class name. On small, I want the text to be 3XL, 2XL. Then we'll go font medium, and we'll go title font. We'll say the text, set the color to the gray, and we'll make it 800. And to give it a little bit of space, we'll go margin bottom of 1. Hit save, and then now you see the styling of the dashboard page has been updated. So now let's update the description. So we'll go class name text base, and we'll go leading relaxed, and we'll say text gray, and we'll set this one to 500. Click save, and then now you see the text is updated. So we actually can go ahead and close out the heading text file because we no longer need it. And we'll we'll refocus back on designing our home page. So I'm not going to worry about setting up the managing of our subscription just yet. That's going to be really driven by Stripe, and we'll come back and do that at the end. But if I open up the page just to kind of see what it looks like on larger, you're going to notice that the description, or that the title, excuse me, is larger now, and everything is centered, and will reduce the page size back. You notice that it reduces the size and it goes back to the size that it was previously. So perfect. That appears to be working just fine. Now what I want to do is just go ahead and add in the table so that we can see the post displayed onto the screen if we have any. So underneath the closing div, I'm going to add another div, and we'll give it a class name of flex. We'll set the direction to column. We'll give it a width of full, padding on the X of 4, the padding on the Y of 4. We'll go margin of 4, overflow X will be set to auto, and on small we want the max, or excuse me, we want the margin X on the X axis to be set to 8. We want the padding on the X to be set to 4, or excuse me, to 8 as well. And let's just go ahead and set the height to screen. We'll click save, and we probably won't notice any changes just yet, but that's okay. Now inside of it, let's add another div. And within this one, we'll give it a class name as well, and we'll give it a padding of 4. We'll say border rounded XL, and we'll go inline block, and then we'll go min width of full, overflow will be hidden. And just so I can see something on the screen. There we go. So you see that it is currently showing, and yep, that looks good. Currently showing the P, and we have our appropriate padding, we have a border, and the border is rounded. So perfect. So now what I want to do is I want to show a table, and if there's any post, I want to display the table with the post. But if there are no posts, then I also want to just show, hey, we currently don't have any posts to be displayed, or there's 0 posts, or something to that effect. So in order to gain access to the posts, the other thing we want to do is in the dashboard page, we don't want to display all the posts. We only want to display the posts created by the user, because this is where the user can see their posts. The home page will show all posts, not just my post, but any post created by anyone. But dashboard needs to be just my post. So the way we'll do that is we'll create a variable named post, and we'll say await, because this is going to be an asynchronous action. And then we want to get access to Prisma, in particular the Prisma function that we created in the lib directory. So we'll go prisma.post, because that's the model that we want to gain, and we'll go find many. And then inside of find many, we want to say where the creator ID is equal to well, it will probably make more sense if we captured the user versus just using the user email. So I'm going to go back up, and I'm going to say const existing user to create a separate variable. I'll explain in just a moment. Existing user is equal to await prisma.user.find unique, UNIQUE, and we want to go where the email is equal to user email, and then we want to set the creator ID is equal to existing user.email. And the reason we want to do this is because we want to grab this user, and we want to be able to grab all of the user posts, not just posts in general. And it makes it easier if we grab it by the existing user. So now what I want to do is, let's say inside of this function, we'll go, if there are no posts, we want to display a message, and then if there are posts, we want to display the post. or a table with the post. So we'll go post dot length first, which is saying that the length of the post, if it is 0, I want to show a message, and this can be we'll just say no, you haven't created any post yet. Why not post your first blog? And then hit save. And then if there is post, then we'll just display a table just to have something. So we'll click save, and we should see the message because we haven't created any posts just yet. Perfect. So I'm going to style the p tag, and we'll give it a text of gray. And gray, we'll make this one 800. We'll go text centered, margin top of 8. Hit save. There we go. All right. And then now, and even though we can't see it just yet, I'm going to add some styling to our table. So we'll go class name min width of full. So that takes up the entire container. And then we'll say leading of normal. And we'll go text centered. And then inside the table, of course, the table needs a table head. And then we'll need a table row. And then one of the first headers we want it to be the title. And we'll give it a class name of padding on the X of 5, padding on the Y of 3, text small, font normal. We'll make the text centered. We'll go text gray of 800 to set the color of the text. We'll make everything uppercase. Set the background to white. We'll give it a border bottom, and we'll set the color of the border to gray 200. We'll save it, and I know we can't see anything just yet. And I'm also going to include the title, the date, type. So I'm going to just copy this, which will be title. This one is date. And we'll add another one. The next one is going to be type, T-Y-P-E. And then last but not least will be update. Okay, that's going to care for the table head. Now what I want to do is display the post in the event we have any post. So let's go start by, we'll want this in the body of the table. So we'll say post, and this one isn't the lift. This one we want to map over each one of the posts. And for each post, we want to display a table row. And of course, anytime we are mapping, we need to assign a key. And we're going to say that the key is going to be post.id. And then we want to display the table detail. And inside the table detail, it's just going to be post.title. And then let me style this table detail a little bit. And we'll go padding on the X of 5, on the Y. I think the Y we want 3. We'll say text small, font normal, text centered. Then we'll say text gray of 800. Set the border bottom, and we'll set the border to be gray, and I think it was 200. So let's just copy this. And for the title, we can go, the next one will be for the date. And to set the date, I'm not sure if we can do it. Let me go. We may need to mark this one out. We'll go date, post.created app. And then we'll go .to local string. This is just some good old JavaScript. And basically what it's going to do is capture the created date from MongoDB and just convert it for us so that it is readable. So we'll copy this again, and then the next one we'll paste in. We can update this to post. And this one is going to be if it's premium, P-R-E-M-I-U-M. We'll go with a question mark. And if it's premium, we'll show premium, P-R-I-U-M. Or we're going to display free. If it's not premium, then of course it's free. And then the last row that we want will be to update or to click to get the details so that we can get to the update page, or to delete it. So I'm just going to put link. I'm going to give it an href, and we'll say /dashboard. And this route has not been created just yet, /post. And we'll set it to post.id. And then we'll go details. And then we'll also add a delete post. This will be a trash can. I haven't added it just yet, but we'll add it later. We're getting an error, so we'll say post. And then the link will also have a class name. And we'll go underline, text small. And on hover, we'll set the text to primary. Move to 50. And I think with this one we'll need to say flex item centered, and we'll also give it a little bit of space, so we'll say gap of 1. So we'll save the file. I know we don't have anything created just yet. That's fine. And we could go ahead and add something just so that we can see it on screen, but instead of just adding it through the Prisma Studio interface, let's just go ahead and update our create post page. So for right now, I'm going to close out this page.js. And if you click on the create button, it should navigate us to the create post page. And in this window, what we want to do is we want to set up this page so that we can start to create a post. So we'll go back into our directory and we'll click on create page. And the magic, we're going to have some items within this, but the magic is going to be on a separate form. So let's just style this page. We'll give it a section, and we'll update the class name to padding of 4. We'll give it a box to give it the padding consistency, and inside of that box, we'll give it a class name of flex column. We want everything going in the column, and we'll give it a gap of 8. And then inside of the div, let's add the heading text, and we'll give it a title. The title is going to be new post page. We'll set a description, add your posts below, and then we'll hit save. And you'll notice that we see it now on screen. And then now what we want to do is add in the new post form. We're going to have that ability listed here. The reason we're keeping it separate is because we want some some client-side activity using some JavaScript. And of course, I want to keep everything as much to the server as possible. So I'm going to put the form in a separate location, and then we'll just import it. So with this one, I think what we'll do is we'll add this form inside of the dashboard, because it shouldn't need to be accessed with anywhere else inside of the project. So we'll say inside of the dashboard, inside of the create directory, let's add a new folder name components. Like this, and then inside of it we'll add a folder named new post, and inside of new post, let's go ahead and add in the first file, which is going to be new post form.js, and we can mark this as use client because it certainly will have client-side activity. And it will go new post form, And then let's bring it inside of the create page, hit save, and you see the new post form there. Boom. So we can go ahead and close this file out because we will not need to make any more changes to it. And if we do, we can always bring it back up. But we have the use client set at the top, and within this one, we're going to need to install a few dependencies to get us going. The main thing that we want is the ability to create forms and have a little bit of validation. And in this project, in order to do so, what I want to use is React Hook Forms. In addition to React Hook Forms, I also want the ability to send a toast notification to the user once the post is created. And we'll also want to have some validation set up by Yelp. So let's go ahead and start by installing some of those dependencies. So we'll go to Google React Hook Form and click on the docs. We'll go to get started, and I'm just going to copy React Hook Form. Okay, and we'll install it, and then I want to also install, for schema validations, I want to do Hook Form Yelp resolvers. And that should be the dependencies we need. And then I want to go React Hot Toast. Let's use the NPM version right here. We'll copy it. Okay. All right. So with that, we have all the dependencies installed that we'll need. And then we can always install them again if we don't have everything. So first, I want to bring in this file because we want to bring in quite a few things. First up will be use state, just to help us manage the state. And then we'll go use form. This is going to come from React Hook Form. Then we want to do the Yelp resolvers. And this is going to come from Hook Form resolvers. Then we'll go asterisk, and this is going to come from Yelp. Nope, that's asterisk, and I think it is as Yelp. And it's just coming from Yelp. Yep, that should be it. There we go. And we'll go ahead and import toaster from React Hook Toast, and then we'll also need the toast. And I think, well, we'll also need, last but not least, React Router to reroute us once we've successfully created a post. So we have the imports that we need. Now, a couple other things that we want to go ahead and get set up, and I like to do this first, but you could do it in any order that you want. Let's go ahead and set up our server action to create the post. So inside of the lib directory, let's add another folder named actions, and inside of it we're going to create a file named createpost.js. And inside of this file is where we want to basically set up our function or action to create a new post. Typically this would be done by using an API, but because I like to because the recommended way is to use server actions, and it's my preference as well too, we're going to use server actions. So we'll start by setting the file to be use server, and then we want to get access to auth, which is coming from the @auth file that we added for authentication. And then we'll also need to import Prisma. Now let's create a function that we're going to export that'll have the ability to create a post. So we're going to name this function create post, and we're going to pass in some event data. We'll start by gaining access to the session as we have in other places throughout the project. Then we'll say const user is equal to session question mark dot user, and then we'll go const user email is equal to user dot email. Great. And some simple validation. We'll say if no user. We'll say throw new error. We'll say user not found. Now underneath it, let's go with a try catch block. And the properties that we want to capture from the event data is the title, description, the image source, and premium, PREIUM, and we'll set that equal to event data. So what we have going on is, in order to create a post, we want to be able to make sure that we have a logged in user. So we're leveraging authjs for that, and we also want to get access to the session object, and we want the user from that object, the user email in particular, because remember, that's what we're going to be identifying the user, or associating the user and post by the email of the user. So we need it, and the only way that a user can create a post is if they're logged in, and we need their email. So that's the reason that we want the authentication inside of the create post function. And then after we've authenticated the user, we want to gain access to the event data that's being passed to create post, and we want to destructure it. And then once we've captured that data, then we want to identify the existing user, and we'll go existing user equals await, and then we'll say prisma.user.find unique, and then we'll say where email is equal to user email, and then we'll say if no existing user, we want to throw a new error, no user found. Just copy it, and then underneath it we'll say const new post is equal to await prisma dot post, and what we want to do is create. And what we want to use to create is the data that we captured from the event data that we destructured. So we'll say title, description, image source, SRC rather, and then we'll say premium. And then we want the creator ID, because remember, we have to have it. And let me make sure I spelled that correctly. Just to make sure we have the creator ID correctly, I'm going to go back to Prisma, Schema, and let me just copy this, close this out, and update this. This is probably correct. Yeah, it's correct, but I just want to be sure. And the creator ID is going to be the user email that we captured. And then once we've captured it, we just want to return new post. Then we'll go console.log failed to create post. We'll go plus mark, and we'll say error, and then we'll go throw new error, failed to create post. All right, so this looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and save this and close it out, and we can import that function that we just created, create post, and make sure it's coming from lib action/create post. Now with this in place, let's go ahead and just strictly focus on our form. First thing we need to do is set up some validations, and we're going to use Yelp to help us with that. And you can copy this directly from the docs, but to save you some time, I'm just going to go ahead and type it out for you. So we'll say create a variable named schema, and we'll set it equal to Yelp, not a T, Yelp, YUP dot object, and then we'll say shape. We'll say title needs to be Yelp dot string, and then we'll go required. And the message that we would want to send is title is required. And then after it, we'll go description, descripton. And then we'll go yelp.string. And then we'll go required. We'll say description is required. And last, we'll go premium, P-R-I-U-M. And we'll go yep. And this is a Boolean, remember? Basically just saying true or false. And we'll go Boolean. And we'll go required. And we'll say premium selection is required. Hit save. And then now within the form itself, we want to pass in, we want to get access to the, we'll set const equal to use form. And then we want resolvers. And then we'll go yelp resolvers. And this we want to pass in the schema. And then from the yelp form, what we want access to is register, handle submit, form state. And then with form state, we want errors. And then we also want access to reset. And this is just giving us access to properties within use form. Oh, didn't spell something right. Okay. All right. And then, hold on a second. All right, oh, that looks good. That looks good. Yep. All right. So then now what we want is to capture the state. And the image, if you notice, we haven't done anything with it because I'm going to set a separate file. And I want to update or upload our images to Cloudinary. So I'm going to say use state. The initial state for our image will be null. I want to add the ability to see loading. So we'll say loading, and then we'll say set loading and set it equal to use state. Not use form, but use state. And then we'll set it equal to false. And then we'll go const router is equal to use router, and this is giving us access to the use router object that we created, or that we're going to import, excuse me, from next navigation. And then what we want is I think, let me go ahead, we'll just go ahead and create our on submit function. So we'll go const on submit. And we'll set it equal to async, and we're going to pass in the data, and we'll say set loading will be equal to true. And inside of it, we'll have a try catch. And for the try catch, we'll go const post data is equal to, we'll just destructure the data. And this will be the image source. It's going to be equal to image. And I know we haven't done anything with it just yet, but give me just a second. And then we'll go await. And now we want access to the create post function, which will be the same thing as making an API call. And we want to send the post data. And if all goes well, we want to say toast success, post created successfully. SUCC. Successfully, and we'll want to push the user dot push. Let's push the user back to dashboard, and then if we get an error, we'll say toast dot error failed to create post. Give it another minute or two. Let's see. All right. And now we'll go. So this, nope. We probably should do finally. Yep. And we'll say set loading. Set loading to false. This is still saying it's not an export. I must have misspelled something somewhere. Let me see. Give me just a second. Resolver. Got an S there. Okay. YUP. Hold on 1 second. Make sure I have this brought in correctly. This capital Y. 1 second. That. There we go. Sorry about that. I had my imports off. I may have misspelled something, but there we go. All right, looks good now. So we'll go back to the form. So now we have all of the functionality in place. We just need to create the form itself. So we'll replace this div with the div, and inside of it we'll go form, and then first up we have a div with a class name. We'll set it to grid columns of 1 on small devices. Medium, we want to go grid columns of 2, and we'll give it a gap of 6 and just hit save. I know we won't see anything just yet, and then we'll go div. And then inside of it, we'll pass in another div for some styling, and we'll say border rounded of medium, and we'll give it a padding of 4. And then this first one will be a span, and we'll give it with the name of title. And then inside of it, we'll go input, and we want to bring in this input from NextUI. We'll give it a placeholder of title. And then we'll pass in a little bit of JavaScript. We want to register, and what we want to register this as is title. And hit save. Then underneath it, we want to provide any errors back to the user. So we'll say errors.title, and we'll just give it a little P paragraph with text of red. Then we'll say errors.title.message. Hit save. All right, that cares for that one. Then go outside of the initial div, and let's add a new div with a class name. And then we'll say margin top of 6. We'll give it a border. We'll go rounded medium, a padding of 4. It really is the exact same thing. And then inside of it, we'll go text area. And this is going to have a placeholder of description. And we want to go register. Passing in description, hit save, and then we'll just add a little span and say description. And then underneath, we'll go the same errors. And we'll say errors.description. Errors.description. There we go. Hit save. And then now we want to come out of two divs. And then after the second closing div, let's add a new div. And this is going to represent the second column. If you notice, you have your title and your description on the left. And we're going to have the other columns that we're going to create now. So within this div, let's pass in another div and give it a class name. And we can copy this exact same code. And with this one, we're going to say premium. And I'm just going to do a little question mark. And then underneath it, we'll give it a div for a little bit of styling and a margin top of 2. Then within it, we'll add a label with a class name of inline flex. And then our label, you know what, better set that. If we're gonna go flex, you might wanna go item centered. And then inside of this label, let's have a input with a type of radio. And we'll say value of true. And then pass in the register. Let's go premium. And then outside of it, we'll say otherwise the value is going to be false. F-A-L-S-E. And then this is going to be self-closing. And then underneath it, we'll set a span of no. Let's give a class name margin left and hit save. Okay. Yeah, that'll work. And then underneath the label and underneath the div, let's pass in the error. So we'll say errors.premium. And we'll give it a p tag with a class name of text red 500. And then inside of it, we'll pass in the message. So we'll go errors.premium.message. Let me see, I have I think we need another label. So this one is, hold on a second. It should be. Yep. So let me update this one. So we have premium margin top. So the first one is going to be for true. Let me redo this. So let me update this a little bit. That's okay. So the first label we have will be a type of, well, this one is going to be type radio, and then we'll say a value of, let me change that, it's throwing me off a little bit, value of true, and then we'll go register, and we want premium. And then we'll say this value is true. And then we have this value will be false. Yeah, this looks okay. We'll go, hold on a second, get out a little bit of gap. space x2. So we'll go margin left 4. Nope. Let's go back to 2. But I want a little bit of, hold on one second, I want to fix this styling just a little. Margin left 4. There we go. All right, just wanted to give that a little bit of styling. Sorry about that. So then last but not least, we'll come outside of this last div and we'll add another div and we'll give it a class name of margin top of 6. We'll say border rounded medium, and then we'll go padding of 4. And now within this file, what we want to do is we want to pass in the image upload. And so what we'll do is within the new post form folder, we'll add a new file named image upload.js. And within this file, we want the ability to upload an image to Cloudinary. And I've already kind of created the code for this, so you don't have to worry about typing it all out verbatim. But I'll include it in the description, so give me just a second. So the main things from this file is basically saying that we have the ability to upload a file, and we're going to prevent the default behavior. And we'll update the form data and make sure that it is file, and we want to append the upload preset. And this information is coming from Cloudinary. So I'm going to show you where I grabbed it from. So basically what I did was I already set up a environment cloud within the Cloudinary site, and my cloud name is social site. So as you can see, I have it listed here, and the upload preset, we're going to capture that from the configurations within the window. Give me a second. Nope, that's not it. So within this, I have our upload preset. I have upload site. And if you notice that that's what I'm using for this particular cloud cluster, if you will. And then you'll basically just use fetch to make the request to this URL. And like I said, I have all of this listed in the description, so feel free to just copy it. You can also use the Cloudinary dependency that comes with Next.js to do the simple file upload. I just prefer to use the custom one, but either one will work just fine. And I can do that next time if that's something you'd be interested in. But just feel free to copy this code so that you can upload a image to Cloudinary, and that'll take care of that. So now if you go back to the new post form, and what we want to do is gain access to that that form that we just created. So we'll just go image upload, and then we'll go on upload. What we want to do is we want to pass in a file, and within it we want to also update the state of the set image that we create earlier, and we want to update it with the file that we're passing in. And then what we'll do now is if we have an image, we want to have the ability to see that image as a preview. So we'll go image and we'll go just src. We could use the image from Next.js, but just to keep it simple, we'll go image and then we'll go source, and we'll set that to image. And then we'll set an alt to preview. and we'll go class name of margin top of 2, and I'll set the max width to extra small. Then we'll hit save. All right, and then now you see the image upload on the screen, and then we'll come out of the JavaScript, and then we'll also back out of the last 3 divs so that we're just above the form and right below the last div. Let's bring in a button from NextUI. We'll set the type to submit. We'll give it a class name width of full, margin top of 6, and we'll say, come out of that, we'll say disabled. We'll set this to loading. And then we'll, inside of that button, we'll say a little bit of conditional rendering. If we'll say loading, then we want to display creating. Otherwise, I just want to show create. So let's hit save. And then outside of the form, let's add in our toaster so we make sure we get notifications. And then if we hit save, we should have a form on our screen with a title, description, premium, and also image. And I'll just add a span, add a image. Okay. And then now let's just test this out to see if it's working. So we'll go first post, simple description for our first free post. And we'll say no, and then let's grab an image and go premium digest. We'll go pick one. And you see we have the ability to preview the image. Now let's click create. And it appears that it just redirected us back to the home screen. Doesn't notice any errors or anything. So now let's check our MongoDB database and go browse collections. And if we click on post, it doesn't appear. Yep, the post didn't go through. That's fine. So let's see. Oh, it'll help if we pass in the handle submit. I just noticed that the handle submit wasn't being used, so it'll help if we use that. So inside of the form, let's pass in on submit, and then we want to go handle submit, and inside of it we'll go on submit. Sorry about that. And everything is being used now. We'll click save, and we'll go first post. This is the description of our first post. We'll say premium no. Pick one. Failed to create post. And it says argument description is missing. So we know we have our description. If you look at it, I clearly misspelled it. Sorry about that. So I'm just going to copy it from right here and remove this, paste it in. Now let's try this again. And we should just be able to hit create. And you see it got redirected. And if we notice on our dashboard page, we now have the ability to see the post in the table. So that is working properly, which is perfect. So now what I want to do is when we click on details, I want us to be redirected to the post detail page. That'll give us the ability to update the post. So I'm going to close out the new post form for right now. And within the table, with the dashboard, let me take a look. We are passing details. So this is being passed, the route to it is being passed as dashboard/post/ID. So inside of our dashboard directory, which is inside of website, let's add a new folder named post. Then inside of post, let's add a new folder named bracket, open bracket, ID close bracket. And the inside of it, let's pass in a file named page.js. And we'll do the RFCE snippet just to make sure, just to get something on the screen, or in the file, I should say. And we'll say single dashboard, single post, dashboard, single post. Hit save. And we can go ahead and pass in params. And we're going to make this async. Okay, so now what should happen is once we click on details, we should be redirected to this window, even though we don't have any, we won't be able to see anything just yet. It should just automatically route us to this window. So let's confirm it. So I'm going to do it in a separate window by holding down the control key, then clicking on details. And if I click on the new tab, you see that we are seeing the dashboard single post. So perfect. So that means that we have the ability to click on that link. And if you notice in the URL, we have the ID of the post that we just created. So that means that we can grab that ID and find the unique post information and display it to the user. So let's go ahead and work on that now so that we'll then have the ability to update the post and make changes to it as need be. So within this file, we'll go ahead and start by bringing in some information. So first, let's go ahead and bring in auth, because we want to make sure that those users match up. We'll bring in the box for styling. Let's bring in prisma. And then I think that'll be all that we'll bring in for right now. And then let's get access to the post and we'll worry about the update post function. So let's go ahead and create a variable named post ID and set it equal to params.id. That's just so that we can get access to this ID. And then we'll go const session is equal to await. And remember, this is coming from the auth. Then we'll go const user is equal to session with a question mark dot user. Then we'll go const user email is equal to user dot email. Then of course we'll need to get access to the user. So we'll go const existing user is equal to await prisma dot user dot find unique unique, and then we'll say where email is equal to user email, and then we'll say we don't have to worry about that because we won't be able to get to it. Next, we'll go const post to get access to the individual post. Await prisma.post.find unique. And we'll say where ID is equal to the post ID that's being passed in. But if we'll say if there's no post, if no post, then we'll go return redirect to dashboard. BOARD. Okay. All right, now let's begin to just make sure that we are getting this information onto the screen. So I'm going to replace the div with a section. Class name, padding on the while 4. Let's pass in a box. And then we'll go heading, text. We'll say title, post update page. Description, we'll go update your post below. And hit save. Okay. Then underneath it, let's have a div, and then let's pass another div. We'll go class name, padding on the Y of 12. And then let's just make sure we're getting something on the screen. So I'm gonna go post.title, first post, bam. All right, so great. So now that we're getting this passed through, I want to have a separate form, and of course it's going to be very similar to what we just created, and I don't want to set this as a client-side file, so I'm just going to create a separate file for the form. So we'll go components, and I'm just going to keep it in this folder. We'll go update post, and I'm going to name this update post form form.js. Make this use client RFCE update post form, post form for consistency. And then let's just go ahead and set pass in post, and I'm gonna go post, hold on, we'll go post.title just to make sure this works. So we'll go update back in the dashboard single post. Once you've created that file and saved it, go back to the single dashboard single post, and then we'll bring in that update post form, and then we'll pass in post as the prop, hit save, and we see first post, and it's coming from the update post form. So we can go ahead and close out this page.js, and I'm gonna close out the dashboard page, but I am going to bring up the new post form because this form is going to be very, very similar to the form that we just created, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel too much if we don't have to. But before we implement the logic on this page, let's go ahead and create the function first. So within the lib directory, within actions, let's add a file named update post.js. And sorry, hit Control N versus Control B. We'll set it as use server, and we'll bring in auth and prisma, and we'll go export async function update post, and we'll pass in, with this one we want to pass in a post ID and the event data. All right, and I'm going to grab some of this because this is pretty similar. Grab that, and again, we just want to, what this is just making sure that we have a user, and then after we confirm if we don't have a user to throw an error, we'll add a try catch block. And we want to capture the, first we want to capture the existing user. Existing user is equal to await prisma user.find unique, and we'll say where email is equal to user email, and we'll say if no existing user, throw a new error, user not found. Okay, and then now we'll need to capture the event data, so I'm just going to grab this code from there, and then we'll go to update the post. We'll go const updated post is equal to await prisma dot post dot update, where ID is equal to the post ID that's being passed in, then the data is going to be the title, description, the image source, premium, and then we'll say creator ID is equal to user email. Then we'll go console.log post updated, just to, if everything goes successfully, and then we'll pass in the updated post, and then we'll be sure to return updated post so that we can gain access it from the front end. And then we'll go console.log error updating post if we get an error, and pass in that error. And then we'll go throw new error. We'll say error or updating, and we'll say error.message. Okay, so we'll hit save, and we should be able to close this out. If we have an error with it, we'll come back and we can close out the create post. So now we just need the update post and the new post form. So inside of the update post, like I said, it's going to be very similar to the new post form. So we'll kind of leverage it quite a bit. So we actually can copy all of the imports. I'm going to grab everything except for the create post, the button, and the upload image. Go ahead and copy everything, and let's just replace what we have in the update post imports with it. And then inside of the update post form, I'm going to bring in the image upload. And then we'll also, we'll bring in the buttons and everything later. We already have the post passed in, so we'll just set the loading state. We'll say loading, and then we'll say set loading, and that's going to be equal to use state. And then we'll go const router is going to be equal to use router. I don't think I brought it in. Yeah, I did. And then we'll go, we actually can copy this exact same code from the form, paste it in, but we'll make a slight change. So we have the resolver, and what we then want to add is default values. That way, when we click on the link, we can see what we already have, and it'll already list those default values there for us. And all we'll need to do is just make changes to it accordingly. So inside of default values, we're going to set the title to post.title. The description, description, will be set to post.description. Premium, P-I-U-M, it's going to be set to post.premium. And I'm going to add toString on this just to make it a little easier to work with. And then image, we're going to set to post.image src. And underneath it, I'm going to go const image. It's going to be equal to watch image. And then we'll have, come out of that. Then we'll create our onSubmit function. We'll go onSubmit equals async, async, and we want to pass in the data. And then we'll say set loading to true. Then we'll have our try catch block. And we'll go const updated data is equal to data. And we'll go the post ID will be equal to post.id. And we'll go await and be sure to capture the update post from the lib directory. We'll go, we know we need to pass in a post ID and the event data. And the event data is going to be the updated data that we just captured inside of that variable that's being destructured. Ooh, if I could talk. Let me fix that back. And then we'll go, if everything's successful, we'll go toast.success, post updated. And then we'll go router dot push, and we'll move the user back to the dashboard. DSWRD, yep. And then inside of the catch, we'll go console.log error updating post and pass in the error. And then we'll say toast error failed to update post. And then we'll go finally set loading. We'll set it to false and save it. And it'll probably help if I pass in the schema, right? I said schema, but never gave it a schema. So let's go const schema is equal to, actually, I'm just going to grab this directly from this. So I meant to pass this in earlier, but it's okay. So we'll go with errors, and instead of reset, let's go with set value. And we'll also need to pass in watch from use form. Sorry about that. Great, no error. So now that we have this, let's go ahead and update the return so that we can begin to see the content on the screen. So we'll go div, we'll go class name and set the width to full. Then we'll add a form, and I'll be sure to add the on submit first, on submit. And then we'll go handle submit, which is coming from use form, and we want to pass in the on submit function that we created. And then we'll go div, class name, and I'm gonna grab a lot of this styling from here. And inside of that, we'll go with a div. And then we'll go okay, hit save, and we see the title listed there. So now we just want to add in the input. So we'll go input type of text, and then register, of course, and we want to register the title. Hit save. Input is not defined. Sorry about that. Let's import that from NextUI. Okay. And as you can see, it is showing first post as the default value because that's what we named our first post. So I'm just going to copy the errors from the previous, copy the errors from the new because it's the exact same. So then underneath that closing div, we'll add another div and give it a class name, a margin top of 6, border, we'll go rounded medium, a padding of 4. And then with this one, we're going to have a text area. And we'll go with register and description, DSCRIPTON. Description, DSCRIPTON. Make sure I spelled that correctly. So I probably should put this new one too because I may have it misspelled. Yep, I'll update it there. Sorry if I didn't catch that before. All right, so we have that updated. So now let's just close that out and we can copy the description. Let's change that. Yep. Change this. Okay. And go back, and underneath it, we'll add that in. And hit save. Give it a moment. There you go. See, it's loading from the database, and give it a span. DS description. Hit save. Okay, great. So now we'll come out of this column. So we'll go down 2 divs and come up, or go to the next. Come out of the last 2 closing divs so that we are outside of that column. And now let's create another div so that we're in the next column. Give it a class name, a margin top of 6, border rounded of medium, a padding of 4. And then we'll go with a span for premium and hit save just to make sure we see it. Yep, looks good. And if we expand out the window, it is in the second column. Great. And then outside of this span, we'll add another div. We'll give it a class name, a margin top of 2. And then this div will need a label, just as we had before. We'll give it a class name. Actually, let's just go with, save a little bit of time. We'll just copy this. And we copied that from the border. Okay. There we go. Okay. And we see that it is currently set to no because it is free. So that's perfect. And then last but not least, well, not last, but next we need to bring in the image. So with this one, we're going to come out. We have the errors. Make sure I get this one right. Let's come under this div, and we'll go div class name margin top 6, border rounded medium, padding of 4. Actually, I don't think we need a margin top. I think we kept it without. Let's hit save. Oh, let me go span. Image. Let me come out one more. Nope. Hold on one second. Just want to make sure I get these labeled up. So first off, let's put this here. And then we have, should be coming out 2. There we go. And let me grab this from here. Make sure I have that. Let's hit save. Okay, great. Now instead of add, let's go with update. Update image. Hit save. Okay, great. So it is showing the current information, and then now we just need a button to have the ability to update it. So we'll come out of those 2 divs. We'll bring in a button. Make sure you bring it in from nextjs. And then inside of this button, we'll go with the type of submit. And then we'll go disabled. And what we want to pass to it is loading, because that is the initial state. Yep. Okay. And then now within the button itself, we want to pass in loading. Then we'll say updating or update and hit save. think I want to go with the class name on this. Hold on, make that look a little more consistent. So I'm gonna copy this one and replace it here. And I'm just going to change just something just to make sure it's working. This is the description of our first free. I'll just add a bunch of E's. And this should redirect us to the dashboard window if all goes well. Nope, we got an error. And looks like I mistyped something and misspelled where. Sorry about that. So let's go back to update post. Right here. So change that. Hey, it worked correctly. And let's click on details. And we see we have the extra E's. I had post. Keep that as that. That is that. And so I probably ought to change that to refresh versus redirect. That way the page automatically refreshes. You know, with next caching, it doesn't automatically grab that. It'll grab what's cached versus refreshing and grabbing what's new. So we can always change that later on. But you see that it is updating the title now. And if we go back to details, the description is different. The premium, let's make sure that updates as well. And you see the type now says premium. Let's go with what is it? Window.reload. I'll come back to it. I think it's window.reload. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll have to check it out in a minute. But that's fine. So it does update, so that's perfect. And let me see something. I probably should add a, let's go with pick 2. So we need the ability to delete that. We'll make that change as well. So we see that we have the ability to update the post. We'll just need to make sure that in Cloudinary that we delete that post and that it automatically updates, but that's fine for right now. So great. We have the ability to display post in the database. We have the ability to, well, from the database, excuse me, we're able to see the post created by just the user. And the next thing we'll need to do is update the functionality to delete a post. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we'll close out. Actually, we'll keep it open. Inside of lib, then actions, let's add a file named deletepost.js. And this one should be fairly simple and pretty straightforward. We just want the ability to delete a post. So we're not going to have to capture much in order to do so. So let's start by setting this as a server component. We'll go ahead and import Prisma. And let's set this function name to export const delete post and set it equal to async ID. And we'll go with a try catch. And I'll say console.log deleting post. ID, and that's just to make sure we're getting the right ID, but I guess we would know if it's deleted as well. But deleted post is equal to await prisma dot post dot delete, and then we'll say where ID, and then we'll go console.log post deleted. And we'll say deleted post. That way we'll just know it's deleted, and then we'll return deleted post. You don't have to return anything, I guess, technically, but it's okay though. We'll say console.log error deleting post. Make sure we get this. It's very important. I'm not going to worry about throwing a new error. right now. So we'll go ahead and save this file and close it out. And then we'll go to, we can close out update post, close out new post, just save it. And we can close out update post. Let's go back to the, I think it's the dashboard page. Yes. And we see we have delete post listed there. Let's change this to a reusable component. So I think it probably makes most sense that we can just keep it inside of the update, inside of that folder where we have update post and new post. That way we're not creating too many folders and it's too much to keep up with. So inside of components, let's add a new folder named delete post. And then inside of it, we'll say delete post button.js. We'll make this a client-side component. Go RFCE delete post button, and then we want to pass in the post ID as a prop. We'll go back to the page and we'll say delete post button, and of course this is going to take in a prop, and the prop that we're going to pass in is post ID, and we'll say post.id and hit save. And we see that on the window we now have delete post button. So great. Now what we want to do is add a little bit of functionality to this button so that when we click on it, it deletes the post from the database. So we'll bring in use state from React, and then we'll bring in the FI trash can just for styling from React icons. Let's bring in the delete post function, and then I think we'll need toast from React hot toast. There we go. All right, so now we'll just add in the code just to give us the ability to delete. So we'll say const, and we'll start by grabbing the state, deleting, and then set deleting, and we'll set that equal to use state, and we'll set it to false. And then we'll need a function to handle the delete request. So we'll say handle delete is equal to async. And then inside of it, we'll pass in the try catch block. And we'll say set deleting to true because this is going to change the state once we hit submit. And then we'll go await delete post. And we need to send something back to the browser or something back to the server action, and that's going to be the post ID. If all goes well, we'll say toasted success, post deleted. If we get inside of the catch, if we get an error, we'll say could send a toast. We'll send a toast. Toast.error, error deleting post. May want to console it too. Delete error. Error. And then we'll say finally to change the state. We'll go set deleting to false. Perfect. And then now let's update the return. Inside of the return, let's change the div to a button. We'll say, we'll give it this one an on click since we're not using hook form. And then we'll just pass in the function we just created. And then we'll say disable deleting. And then inside of the button, we'll pass in a little bit of JavaScript. We'll say deleting Yeah, that's it. Ooh, deleting. Otherwise, I want to show a fi trash, and we'll give it a class name, height of 4, width of 4, not f before, and close it out. Hit save. Okay. So now, if we click on delete, we see that it is deleting. And if we refresh the page, we see that, yep, looks good. Refresh the page, we see we don't have any posts just yet. So great. We see that that is now working. So we have our full CRUD functionality within the dashboard with posts. We have the ability to create, delete, and update posts. Now what we want to do is display these posts onto our web page, or our home page, excuse me, so that we can begin to provide some subscription functionality. So we'll say, let's just add a post back to the database. We'll say first post description is here and it's free. Premium, we'll say no. Let's grab an image. I'm gonna grab the same one. We see it listed there. We'll hit create. We see it now on the screen. Boom, perfect. So now what we want to do is have the ability to display this onto the home screen so that users can begin to see the posts that we have created. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and close out these open files because we shouldn't need them for the time being. Let's close out or reorganize or close some of the folders that are open so it's a little easier to see. And now within the page.js that's listed within inside of the website directory itself, let's begin to style the home page. And I'm going to use a different browser so that we can see the differences in user roles and who can have access to what, so we're not using the exact same user. So I'm gonna go to localhost 3000 and just sign in with a different Google account. Okay, and now you see that we are on the home screen, and if we click on dashboard, we know that we don't have any dashboard or any posts with this user. But if we go to the prior user, we see that this user does have one free post that's created. So great. So now inside of the home page, let's start by marking this as an asynchronous function. And I want to get access to the post. So we'll say const post is equal to await prisma.post.find many. And we can just leave it just as that. And because I want to show all posts on this screen, we're not going to implement any logic until we get to the single post page. So within this, let's remove this div and replace it with a section tag. Yep. And we'll give this some padding on the Y. And we'll give it a box. And I'll add a we'll add in some heading text. We'll set this to premium digest. We'll say D premium digest. Description. We'll set this to check out the latest post below. Okay. Close this out, and then underneath this div, let's add another div. Let's go to home. There we go. Let's add another div, and within it, one more. We'll say class name padding on the Y of 6, just to give it a little bit of separation. And then I'm gonna place the post in a grid. So I'm gonna say class name grid columns of 2. On medium, we'll go grid columns of 3, and we'll leave it at that. and then we'll go space. We'll give it a little bit of space on the X of 2. And then for each post, what I want to do is the same thing we've done anytime we map, is to map over the post, or anytime we need to display data is to map over the post and display them onto the screen. So we'll go post.map, and we'll go post. And then inside of it, just to get something, let's just make sure it's working. We'll go post.title. Hit save. There we go. All right, so instead of having it hard coded like this, I'm going to create a reusable component. And I think we'll put this one inside of the main components directory. It should be fine. So we'll create a folder named postcard, and inside of it we'll go postcard.js. And I don't think we need to make this a client-side component. We should be able to just keep this as a regular component. But if we need to, we can always change it. So we'll just say, give it the RFCE template, change the name to postcard, pass in post as a prop, and then replace this div with postcard, and we'll give it a key of post.id, and then we'll set post is equal to post. Hit save. All right, and we see a postcard on the screen because we have one post inside of our database that's being displayed. So that's great. So now we can actually close out the home screen. Yes. And we can just work with the postcard. So inside of this, we're not going to need much. Let's go ahead and bring in link from next link. And then inside of the postcard return statement, let's replace this div with link. And inside of link, let's set the href first so we don't forget. So we'll set the href to with temporal literal /post/ID or post ID, and we haven't created this route just yet. That's okay. We'll create it in a moment. And the link will need a little bit of styling just to make it look a little better. So we'll go. We'll set the margin to auto, and we'll set the overflow to hidden. We'll give it a border padding of 2. We'll go rounded. We'll set that to medium. We'll go shadow of small. Give it a cursor pointer. And in the hover state, we'll go BG slate. Let's set that to 100. And of this, let's set the height to 90, the width to 60. And on medium devices, let's set the width to 80. Okay, and we'll just hit save. And then now inside of the link, let's add a div, and the div will have a class name of block. We'll set the width to full. We'll set the height to full. Okay. And then inside of this div, let's add an image. We'll set the src to post.image src, hit save. We should see it pop up on screen. Perfect. And we'll give it an alt of, we'll go post.title. And then we'll go class name of object. Yep, object cover. A width of full. A max height of 64. Hit save. All right. And then underneath this image, let's add another div, and let's give it a class name of block, a width of full, a height of full. Actually, I'm tripping. Let's go a width of full, flex, item centered, justify between, padding on the Y of 4 and padding on the X of 2. And then we'll add a P tag for the title. Let's just get something on the screen, post.title. Perfect. Now let's style it a little bit. We'll give it a class name of title, title, font. We'll go small text. On small devices, we'll make the text medium, We'll go a font of medium, and then we'll go text gray of 800. Hit save. All right. You should notice some subtle differences. And then now what I want to do is, I'm not going to show the description on the page. I just want to show if it's a premium or not. So we'll say, and we'll conditionally render this. We'll go post premium, PRIUEM, with a question mark, meaning that if it is, then we'll show a span, and that span is going to say premium, PREMIUM. And then inside of this span, we'll add that needs to be capital. We'll add another span with a $sign. And actually I won't hit save just yet. Let me go with the or, and we'll go span free. Hit save. Perfect, we see free. So we'll style the free first. We'll go class name BG primary. We'll go primary. We'll give it a shade of 90, and then we'll go text white, .te, and padding of 1. Perfect, and then we'll go rounded medium. Yeah, that'll work. And then if it is premium, we'll go class name, and just to style this one a little bit, we'll go a background of, actually I want to go background of purple. We'll go 200. Then we'll say text gray 900, padding of 1. We'll go rounded medium, and then for this one, I think we'll probably need to set flex, item centered, and a gap of 2. CENTER. And I set that one to medium. All right, that'll work. And I said and versus a $sign, so we'll change that. We'll go class name text green for this. Shouldn't need much, and hit save. So I know we don't have a free post just yet. I'm gonna wait and create one. But for right now, actually, you know what? This is the other user, so let's just go ahead and create one for both users. So we'll say new user, new post. First post by the new user. I'm gonna make this one premium. Let's add an image. We'll go with pick 2. Hit create. And I need to change that to do refresh. There we go. And if we go back to home, we see the 2 posts. This user has 1 post, that's premium. And then the other one, and this user still has their 1 post that's free. But you can see both listed on the home page, and the user can only see their posts in the dashboard. Perfect. So now that we have this cared for, next up what we want to do is create the individual post page. In the event that we click on this post. If it's a free post, we should have the ability to see it. If it's not a free post and we're not a subscriber, then we should get the message that we'll, we won't have access to it. We'll need to give that access. So for right now, let's just go ahead and set up the individual page. So inside of the website directory, let's add another folder named post. And then inside of it, let's add a file named ID. Then in it, let's add a page.js. And we'll go single post page. And this is okay because remember we named the other single post page we gave it the dashboard name. That way we didn't mix up the two. We kept them unique. So let's go ahead and just mark this as asynchronous, and I'll grab there we go. And inside the function, I'll grab the post ID the same way we did with the dashboard, and we'll go params.id, and then we'll go const params.id. Sorry about that. Then we'll go const post is equal to await prisma dot post dot find unique unique, and then we'll say where ID is equal to post ID, and then let's just update this a little bit. We'll go section class name pattern on the Y4. Let's add the box. Then we'll go div, and then we'll go heading text. We'll say single post page, check out the description of the author's post. Okay, and this looks pretty good. Let me see. We'll click on a free post to make it simple. It does redirect. It is spinning. And it appears that I need to remove that additional bracket, but it is redirecting to the single page. It's passing in the unique ID, and then just to make sure, we'll go post.title, hit save, and voila, we can see it. So let's go ahead and design or build out the rest of this page. And let me see, we have the div listed here. And then now underneath that div, let's add another div, and we'll say, give it a class name of flex. Actually, let's put one more div in between it just in case. Sorry about that. Make that look a little better. Okay, and then inside of it, we'll give a class name of flex, set the direction to column, a gap of 6. We'll set the text to gray, 600. We'll go with body font, and then we'll say overflow is hidden. Hit save. Then we'll go div. We'll give a class name, padding on the X of 5, padding on the Y of 12, and we'll go MX auto. Then inside of that div, we'll add another div, and let's say class name. This is going to be for the image. We'll go MX auto, flex, and we'll go flex wrap. And then with this one, we'll go image, img, and then we'll give it a class name. On medium devices, we want it to be the width to be 1/2. On small devices, we want it by default to be the width of full. On large, we want the height to be auto. To set the auto for the image, we'll set the height to 64, and then we'll go object cover, and then we'll center it, object center, and then we'll go round it. Now let's set the src to post.image src, and we'll set the alt to post.title. Let's hit save. Boom. All right, we have the young lady on screen. Then underneath the image, let's add another div and give it a class name of medium, and we'll set the width to half on medium devices. This is the other column, and we'll say width of full. On large, I want to give a little bit of padding on the left of 10. We'll go padding on the Y of 6 on large devices. We'll give it a margin top of 6. Actually, yeah, let's do that. Margin top 6. And on large, we can set the margin top to 0. Let's hit save. That looks good. Okay. We'll set the H1. Give it a class name of text gray 900. Then we'll go text will be 3XL. The text font, or excuse me, title font, not text font, title font. Then we'll go font will be medium and margin bottom of 1. And we'll say post.title. Should appear here, yep. And then let's see what it looks like this. Yep, perfect. And then underneath that H1, let's add a P tag, and we'll pass in post.description, and we'll style it a little bit. We'll go leading relax, padding top of 6. And then underneath this, we can actually grab this from the postcard, because this code should be pretty much similar. I'm going to copy the conditional rendering for the premium. And there it is, consistent. And just add it here. Hit save. Free. Okay. And once we expand it out, perfect. All right. And with this, now we have the ability to see if, well, excuse me, now we have the ability to click on if the post is free or not. And we can click on it if it's premium. But what we want to do is distinguish if it is premium. We don't want users to have the ability to click on that post unless they subscribe to our subscription-based content. So in order to accomplish this, we're going to need some helper functions. So I'm going to save this file and close it out for right now. And I actually have these functions already created, so that's going to help significantly. And the functions that we're going to be using are going to be leveraging Stripe. So let's go ahead and install Stripe now. So inside of the terminal, type in the command npm I stripe, S-T-R-I-P-E, then press enter. And inside of the lib directory, let's add a file named billing.js. And you could put this inside of app actions, but I just kept it separate. And give me just a moment. I actually already have the functions that we need. We'll just need to make some small changes, but we can do that. And we'll go ahead and copy this code. And just go ahead and paste in these helper functions. I went ahead and created them, so you don't have to worry about doing so. Just copy. I'm going to have the file in the description. But basically what we have is we want to bring in the auth from the @auth just so that we can have the user session. We need to bring in Stripe. We could have used this same Prisma function, but I just kept it separate, no big deal. And we'll need to add in a Stripe secret, which we're going to get from Stripe. So go ahead and copy that variable and let's paste it in the .env file. Click save and we'll go back to billing. And then basically what we have is a bunch of functions that's going to allow us to work with our customer. Hold on 1 second. Make sure I have this correct. STR. It helps if I spell Stripe correctly. So let me fix that. And we'll need to resync our database. Sorry about that. No big deal though. We can remove that S. And then let's make sure that we are, and then we'll also need a redirect URL. So we'll grab that now and paste it inside of the .env. And I think that should be all. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and go to Stripe and capture our secret, our Stripe secret. So in a browser, we'll go to Stripe. Be sure to sign in. If you don't already have an account, go ahead and create one. It's free. I've already have an account created, and you know this can be pretty sensitive data. So just feel free to take a look at it. I'm going to switch over to the Post product because that's the one that that we're using. And what we want is if we click on developers and we click on API keys, if we click on the secret key, it's going to ask you for your password. Give me a moment. Okay, and I'll set that as the key, and then the authorized redirect URL is going to be our local host, so we'll say http localhost 3000, and we can just hit save. Let's close this out. So now that should care for oh, we need to update our database. Sorry. So go ahead and stop your terminal and type in the command npx prisma db push. And this is because I misspelled the customer ID. Yes, it's my fault. I'm sorry. So we'll go npx prisma db push, and it may drop everything from our database. And if it does, fine. If not, no problem. And then we'll go npx prisma generate. And that should, yep, update that. Now we'll say npm run dev, and we'll go back to Let me refresh. All right. So with these helper functions in place, let me refresh our window, see if it kept the session. If not, we'll log back in. Give it another minute or two. All right, so all right, so now that we have this set up, let's go ahead and go back to our dashboard page and begin to implement some of these helper functions. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a user if we don't have a user in the database. So we'll go create customer if null. So we'll go await, and then we'll want to bring in the create customer if null function, and we'll hit save. And that's this very first function that we created here. So now if we hit save and click on dashboard, we'll notice that we are now on the dashboard screen. And did I forget a key somewhere or something? Yeah, okay, I'll come back and fix that. So now that we clicked on dashboard, what it should have done was created a Stripe user for us. So let's confirm it in the database. Update. And you notice that one of our users now has a Stripe customer ID and the other one doesn't. That's because we haven't clicked on dashboard with that user. So now that we've created a user, next thing that we want to do is we want to have the ability to manage the customer's customer subscription status. So underneath the existing user, what we want to add in is to create or generate, I should say, generate a customer link. And the way we'll do that is we'll go const manage underscore link and set that equal to await. And then we'll just call the function that we created, generate a customer portal. And if you recall, with this function, we're going to pass in a customer ID. So what we want is we'll have an empty string, and then we'll say plus, and if there's an existing user, we want to go Stripe, we want to say existing user, and then we want to go Stripe underscore customer underscore ID, and then hit save. And then now let's get access to this customer ID. And hold on a second. We want to bring this in, and remember we want to have this listed here on the window. So what I'll do is we'll copy this div. Actually, Yeah, we already have it in place. Great. So what we'll do now is we'll create another div and we'll give it a class name of flex, item centered. We'll say gap 2, and we'll make the text, I want to make it a little smaller. We'll make it 9 pixels. Hit save. And then we're going to bring in link, or use link I should say, and we'll give it a href. And I'm going to pass in an empty string and then plus manage underscore link, that variable that we just created. And then inside of it, I'm going to I'm going to type in the link name of managed billing. Hit save. And then now if we click on this, you see that we are redirected to Stripe. And perfect. Looks great. So now I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And the next thing that we want to do is we want to pass in if the customer, or if the person, we want to check if the user has a subscription. So underneath the generate link, we'll pass in check if user has a subscription. And then we'll go const has sub is equal to await has subscription, and then we'll click save. All right, now we want to use this, and what we want to do is we want to say over here we want to conditionally render if the user has a subscription, we want to show subscribed, and if they don't, then obviously we want to show that they're not subscribed. So we'll say has subscription, and hold on, pass in a div, and then we'll have a closing div, and then after it, if they don't, then we'll say another div, closing tag, and we'll say with a span free plan, and then underneath it we'll pass in a link, and I'm gonna have to update this link in a minute, but for right now we'll just say slash, and then we'll go okay, and in it will say upgrade. Hit save. All right, and for the has subscription, I'm going to leave it as is for right here on the window, because we shouldn't have to do anything else with it. But the last thing that we do want to do on this window is create a checkout link. So we'll go create checkout link, and then we'll go const check out underscore link is equal to await create check out link. And then with this one, just as we did with the other one, we're going to pass in an empty string, and then we'll say existing user dot stripe underscore customer ID. Hit save. And then now, in order to display or to utilize this, we'll go back to the link with the href that we just created. We'll pass in the empty string, and it will include the checkout link, and it will hit save. And then now, if we click on it, we are redirected to Stripe, and then we have the ability to change our subscription status. But before we change the subscription status, I do want to update the single post page to display that the user is a subscriber or not a subscriber, to make sure that that gating is working properly. So let's go back to the post and post ID, and let's click on the page.js that's within it, and let's update the content on this page just a little bit. That way we can confirm if our user has access to this page or not. So what we want to do is underneath or right above check. Well, actually, we can go underneath it. Underneath, if there's no post, we want to redirect the user. Let's check if user has subscription. And then what we want to do is we want to go const user has subscription. And we want to set that equal to await has subscription. And then we'll call it. And then underneath this, we want to go check if the post is premium, P-R-I-U-E-M. And it will say if post dot premium, P-R-E-M-I-U-M, and not user has subscription, then we want to return a section, and we'll put a box on it to make it look good, and we'll say padding on the while 4, and then with the box we'll add a div, add some heading text, give it a title. We'll say we can use the same thing. Oh my goodness, this is the wrong one. Sorry, this is the dashboard single post. This isn't the one we want. We want the actually, let me just copy all of this. Sorry about that. It's got my pages mixed up. It's not the one in the dashboard, it's the one in the post. So sorry. We want to put this code in the single post that is inside of the post, not inside the dashboard. So click on website directory, then the post directory, then ID, then click on page.js. Now inside of this one, this is where we want to render, or we want to conditionally check on the post. So we'll go single post, and I'm gonna copy this title and description, add it here, give it a closing tag, and then I'm going to say inside of that same div, we'll add a p tag, and we'll give a message that this content is only available for premium subscribers. Go log in, go to your dashboard, and update your subscription. Let's hit save. We'll go class name, and then we'll say text grade of 600. Hit save. And that should take care of that. Yep. And now let's test it out real quick. So this user is still on a free plan. No, this user, actually neither user has signed up for a premium post. So I'm going to go back to the prior user. Hold on, here we go. And with this user, we'll refresh the window. Has subscription is not defined. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to this, and it's right there, clear as day. There we go. And we'll click save. And you notice that we're getting this message. Check out the description of the post. This content is only available for premium subscribers. So you'll need to log in to view this post, because this user is not a subscriber. But if we click on dashboard and we see the user is on the free plan, so if we click on upgrade, and I'll make this bigger so you can see it, and let's just type in the 4242, and we'll type in a card CVS or CVC number on the back. Remove the one click and click on subscribe. Now I don't think we created the success page just yet, So it's probably going to redirect. Yep, it redirected to success, but let me add a success page. So we'll go the route is dashboard/success. So inside of dashboard, I'm gonna add another folder named success, and then a page.js file. And we'll just update this really quickly. RAFCE. And we'll go success page. Hit save. And it should begin to appear. Yep. So it appears that we are now successfully signed up because we were able to successfully make a payment or enter in our payment information on Stripe, excuse me. And we'll go class name of flex column, height, screen, justify center, item center, and welcome new subscriber. Hit save. Should be in the middle. Yep. And then now, if we go back to dashboard, we see that it says manage billing, and let me do this. I want it to say something other. Right here, we'll say premium premium member. There you go. So you see we're a premium member now. And if we click on manage billing, we have the ability to cancel the plan, which is perfect. And this is a free post. And this user is now a subscriber, so they have the ability to see free and premium posts. But if we go back to the initial user, and if they click on a premium post, even though it's a post that they created, they can't check it out unless they're in their dashboard and view it as a creator or author, not as a member, because they're still not a premium member. They're just a free member, so they can't see premium content. So it appears that we have our site, our premium blog or premium digest blog SaaS subscription site set up successfully. Users have the ability to log in, create posts, whether it be a premium or a free post. If it is a premium post, you must subscribe for $1.99 a month in order to see the post. If you're not subscribed, then you can't see the post, but you can subscribe through Stripe. Once you set it up and you make your successful payment through Stripe, you're redirected back to the dashboard/success window. And then from there, the user has the ability to see a free or premium post. So this is just a basic subscription SaaS-based project that you can easily build upon and add quite a bit more features to make it as more complex as you like. You can easily deploy this to Vercel. Just update the environment variables with your new with your new web domain URL if you choose to do that. I didn't do it in this project because I'm out of my Vercel instances and I'm actually working on a project for a friend of mine that I will be showing you once it's complete. But if you have any other questions, feel free to leave me a comment on this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know this was a pretty lengthy live. If you gained something from it or just enjoyed it in general, look, give me a like. I would certainly appreciate it. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.